Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to call to order this Land Use and Transportation Committee meeting of May the 6th, 2025. And we have all members present with the exception of Member Abel. Member Abel would like to join remotely, so I'm going to read some language. She's on the phone now. Having conducted an open roll call and declared a quorum, is physically present, which you all can see. I would like to inform the committee that Member Abel has requested to participate remotely under County Board Rule 2020 and in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Notice was received from Member Abel in accordance with our rules. Per Board Rule 2020, Member Abel will be authorized to attend the meeting electronically if a motion to approve the member's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and adopted by the majority of the members of the committee. May I have a motion to approve Member Abel's attendance? Motion by Member Fagan, second by Member Duffy. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, with no opposition, the motion is passed, and the record will show that Member Abel is present for the meeting. Member Abel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure I'm delayed with my votes. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have the minutes from the Land Use and Transportation April 8th, 2025 regular meeting and the payment of bills and transfers. May I get a motion to get the consent agenda on the floor? Okay, we have Member Reeves and second by Member Zebarth. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, that has passed. Member Abel, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, are there any appearances by members of the public and county employees?
We've had no requests this morning.
Okay, thank you. So our first departmental matters is Phil Dick for Building and Zoning. Phil, I don't see any items from you except for your permit summary. Do you want to make any comments about that?
No, I have nothing to add.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Dick? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 4B1. This is Jerry Stokes in the County Highway Department. 4B1A is request approval of a resolution for the April 22, 2025 project letting. May I have a motion to put this on the floor? Motion by Member Reeves, second by Member Fagan. Who's yours?
Thank you. So this is a couple of resurfacing projects that we're going to do here in 2025. The first one is the Tawana Gridley Road going from Interstate 55 up to P.J. Keller Highway. So it's around a 5.5 mile project to mill and resurface the road there. And then the second project is in Cooksville, the in-town portion of Cooksville. And H.J. Upple was a low bidder on that project. And the second project is a township project where they're putting some gravel on an existing gravel road, and then they're going to put an oil and chip surface on the road. And Benish Construction was the low bidder on that particular project. And all these projects are, Tawana Gridley and the West Township are using MFT funds, and the Cooksville Road is using highway funds.
Anybody have any questions about this item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor approving 4B1A, request approval of a resolution for the April 22nd, 2025 project letting, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. We'll move on to 4B1B, request approval of an engineering services agreement with Thovanot, Wade and Merkin, Inc. for the Shirley Road, CH34, Section 25-00093-07-WR. You made a good motion to put that on the floor. Motion by Member Leffler, second by Member Duffy.
So this project is between Route 51 and Interstate 55, and kind of near where the new animal control is going. And so we decided to put this project in motion here to reconstruct the road, the oil and chip portion of the road. It's about 3 miles across there, and there's a mile on the east side of the project that goes to the Benward facility that is already 80,000 pounds of hot mix. This is taking care of the oil and chip portion of it. And so and it's also kind of going to coincide with a bridge project that we already have in the works in the design portion of it. But we started looking at the 5-year plan and talking to IDOT, and they were kind of looking for some projects in the in this 26 to 28 timeframe here. And so this project actually falls in the what we call the MPO, which is the urbanized area of Bloomington Normal. And so our plan is to use some of the so the urbanized area gets $2.5 million per year. And so we were going to use some of that money to for the construction of this project. And so the way we kind of laid it out to help save money is we're going to have TWM design the project. The day labor staff from the highway department would take care of doing the drain, putting in the culverts and doing the ditch work and the dirt work necessary. And then we would and then get the plans ready to have a state letting to use these funds. So the funds would be for on just the basically the overlay construction portion of the project. And so it'd be an 80-20 split. So 80% of the surface transportation urban MPO funds would be used on this project, and then we would cover the additional 20% with either matching funds or motor fuel tax funds. So we're looking to get start the design on this. Probably take 6 to 12 months for the design, and then we'll have to get right away, and then allow us to still get time to do the construction before we put it out for bid. So it'd be a couple year long project probably by the time it's all said and done.
Does anyone have any questions?
Jerry, do the MPO funds cover the purchasing of the right-of-ways that we need? Or does that come out of?
They could, but there's a lot of requirements that go into that using the federal funds to buy right away. So I probably would just use motor fuel tax funds on this particular project.
Any additional questions about this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll be voting on 4B. 1B, request approval of an engineering services agreement with Thevenant Wade and American, Inc. for the Shirley Road project. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are unanimous. We'll move on to 4B. 1C, request approval of a motor fuel tax resolution for Shirley Road, CH 34, section 25-00093. -07-WR. May I get a motion to put this on the floor? A motion by Member Duffy and second by Member Fagan.
So this is for the same project. It's just we need to put an MFT resolution in the works with IDOT to get it in their system and to be able to use MFT funds to pay TWM for the project. And so we did it for $500,000, so that'll cover some of the right-of-way costs. And if we need it for construction and construction engineering, kind of covers the whole gamut there. But that's what this resolution would work towards, mainly for the engineering side of it.
Any questions about this item? I think we got them answered the last go-around. Okay, all those in favor of 4B1C, request approval of a motor fuel tax resolution for Shirley Road, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Then we'll move on to 4B1D, request approval of a waiver to McLean County Policy, Section 108-46 and 108-52. This is we may go into closed session. Do we have to go into closed session? We may choose to go into closed session. You all received an email with the information. Does anyone feel the need to go into closed session to discuss this matter? Okay. All right, then I'll take a regular motion to put this on the floor. Motion by Member Reeves, second by Member Duffy. Okay, go ahead, Jerry. Okay, so we can't discuss it, but does everybody understand what we would be voting on? Having to do with the compensation package. Okay, all those in favor of approving the waiver to McLean County Policy Section 108-46 and 108-52, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you for that help. All right, so Jerry, now we have your items to be presented for information to a FTE resolution amendment.
Sure. So the first one, the FTE resolution, is kind of corresponds to the motion there that was just passed on the CE. So what this resolution will do, this actually is going to go to finance tomorrow. But in our original budget, we had 3 civil engineer 1 positions that were there, and so we interviewed some candidates, and we feel that they're more qualified for the civil engineer 2 positions that we didn't have in our budget, but we kind of have in our system, I guess, in our payment system. So that's what this resolution basically moves the FTE from the civil engineer 1s to the civil engineer 2s. And we still would have 1 civil engineer 1 that is vacant, and then we have a civil engineer 2 that's going to start with us on Monday, and the other candidate that we interviewed, he declined the position. So basically, we still have a civil engineer 1 and 2 still open. So that gives us some flexibility if we do ended up finding a candidate to work with there.
Any questions about that item?
Jerry, did he give any reason for declining the offer?
So he currently works for the federal park system, and his compensation package is significantly higher. And so I think it was going to be hard to meet, right.
Go ahead, Member Fay.
Yeah, so I remember during last month's committee meeting, Ms. Taylor and you had kind of mentioned some staffing shortages. I was just wondering what kind of the marketing for those positions that need to be, the remaining positions that need to be filled in the department look like, because I this morning I checked Indeed. I even was having a hard time looking on the county website. I didn't know if there's a lot of kind of, a push to get those jobs out there.
So they had just closed, I think they're here at the end of the month. Yeah, or Friday was the last day. So we actually had a civil engineer 1 position, 2, and the 3 positions all posted, and they were on Indeed and everything. And so the last go around, this last month, we still had the 2. We had interviewed 2 candidates, and so we may look at trying to re-advertise for those again. And so, yeah, they go on the county website and go on Indeed, and then we reach out to some of the universities in the area and that type of thing.
Any further questions?
So any further questions on?
Okay, then we'll move on to project summary on Golden Bridge, Lexington Leroy Road.
So I think last month I had showed the pictures of where we were driving the pile, and so last month they had driven the pile on the north side of the bridge, and so you can see this is the pile. This is the north pier pile that they had driven. So they didn't take out the south half of the bridge so they could get the crane closer to the north half, and so these are just a couple pictures of them taking out the south portion of the bridge. And so so they're just moving all the abutments and the piers at this location. And so then here's a picture of them once it's all graded out, putting the driving the pile. So they've already driven the pile for the pier, and then they're working on the south abutment here at this location. And so so there's a kind of a picture of the pier pile. And then another picture. So you can see over here, so this is the north side, and they've poured the encasements around the pile, the concrete encasements, and they've got the abutment formed up. And I think the abutment hasn't been poured yet, but it's been formed up. And so, so this has all been taking place in the last month. And so this is kind of where we were at as of yesterday. So you can see they've got all the piles encased. They've poured the pier caps here, and they've also poured the abutment caps. So, so they basically got everything out of the ground. They're kind of waiting on their forming system to get approved and get sent on site. And then once that's done, they can begin forming the deck. So I think they're planning on next week that system should be here. And I'm guessing it's going to take them about 2 weeks to get the deck formed up and get it poured. So actually, this project's moving along good. They did put riprap in here as well, so the riprap's all in place for the most part around the abutments. So I just have some additional pictures here from a few different angles, so you can kind of see there's the opening and the piers there, and you can see the reinforcement and on the abutments. And so there's not a whole lot of dirt work on this project or anything like that. So once they get everything poured and backfilled, it should move fairly quick after it's done. So any further questions on this project? So we do have some other projects that are getting in the works. We had some pre-construction meetings on the Route 66 bike trail from Funks Grove down to McLean. They're probably going to wait till I think after Memorial Day to start that project. We also had a pre-con on the PJ Keller Highway last week. So that's going from the spillway at Lake Bloomington all the way almost to Lexington. So that's a federal project with paved shoulders, safety shoulders, and everything like that. So yeah, we'll be gearing off here pretty quick to get some of these projects done. So I also want to thank Luke for helping out last week on some of these memos with the staffing issues and covering the pre-cons while I was out of the office. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about these projects before we get into the very exciting motor fuel tax presentation? Okay, go ahead on to the 2C, for 2C.
So I hopefully I have a brief overview of the motor fuel tax fund and maybe some of the highway department funding sources that we have. I won't dive into too many details. I mean, that'll kind of go when we go to the budget, but it's I always kind of like to do this, especially for like some of the new members, just to kind of get a feel for the motor fuel tax and what's involved with that, and kind of where we're at today on certain things. So I'll start out with the highway department operates basically from 4 funds: the highway fund, and the bridge fund, matching fund, and motor fuel tax funds. We also have some township funds that we oversee as well. But our highway fund is our basically our general operating fund, where it covers all the day-to-day operations that we have. And so a lot of the revenue comes from property tax. But it also comes from the commodities that we have on hand for selling to the township, such as pipe and signs. And then also on some of the revenue we get is for permit fees, for work permit fees or overweight fees as throughout the year. So the next fund is our bridge fund, and so that's anything really drainage related that we do is out of this particular fund. So we typically try to do one county bridge a year, or at least we might do multiple repairs of a county bridge on a yearly basis, and so that covers that. The fund also covers a lot of if we're doing culvert work before a resurfacing project, that all comes out of the bridge fund. And then the the other major portion of this fund is the township bridge that we do, township bridge projects that we cover the engineering on, and also joint culverts with the townships that we brought back, brought through here when townships have issues. And those culverts range from various sizes that we do each year. And then the matching fund, so that fund is basically can only be used to match motor fuel tax and federal dollars. And so it can only be used on construction, engineering, and right-of-way. So it's kind of limited. So typically what we do with that the funds out of that is we match, as I was talking about earlier on the 80-20 split, usually use the 20% that we need comes out of the matching fund for those federal projects. And that kind of freezes up to use the MFT and highway funds as needed. And then, so then we move on to the motor fuel tax fund. And so we use this for, kind of covers a lot of everything, used for maintenance, engineering, and construction. And so a lot of the revenue, we get monthly allotments for the MFT. And then there's also what they call a county consolidated, and I'll go into that a little bit more, but that ends up being like 2 allotments per year to kind of help offset some of the costs that the locals have missed out on over the years. So so the motor fuel tax kind of basically started out as a user fee, and so there's 2 ways that money goes into the total motor fuel tax fund. One is it's paid at the pump, and the other is the motor vehicle revenue that's paid to the Secretary of State with like your vehicle registrations and license fees. So it kind of started out as a user fee, and so the whatever's at the pump goes to the locals, and the motor vehicle revenue from the Secretary of State, that pretty much all goes to the state, at least that portion of the funding. So, so I won't get into the whole lot of details of the history of it, but you can kind of see this started back in 1929, and it's kind of increased gradually over the years. And so kind of what I'll take away from this slide here is prior to 1983, the MFT was split. 65% went to the locals and 35% went to the state. And so, so that kind of was that way till 1983. And then, so in 1982, they started where all trucks on the interstate system were going to 80,000 pounds. And then in 1983, Illinois passed legislation allowing 80,000 pounds on state highways. So most of the time when we're doing, or all the time that we're doing design projects now, are all getting designed to the 80,000 pound design that's needed to cover that. And so then they started, after that was all passed, the legislation was passed, they started increasing the motor fuel tax. And then in 1985, they split it and then added a 2.5 cent diesel differential, which went to only the state. And then moving on, so then there was raised again in 89 and 90. And so basically from 1990 to 2019, that 19 cents remained the same. And so, but all that new revenue that was generated from that increase all went to the state, and 25% went to the locals. So basically out of the whole motor fuel tax on this slide, 42% was to the locals and 58% was to the state. So, and this is where they adopted the county consolidated program and the needy township program. And so those were just kind of additional allotments that they gave to the counties to kind of help offset some of the percentage difference that was going between the locals and the state. So, so then in 1999, there was an increase on the motor vehicle registration fees. And so those fees, none of that went to the locals. That all went into the motor fuel tax and basically went straight to the state. So, so none of that was seen to the locals. So, so here's the current split is 54% to the locals and 45% to the state. And then, so basically from like I mentioned, 1990 to 2019, the MFT stayed at 19 cents, and that's where our funds came from, that portion. So then, in 2019, when they increased the motor fuel tax, they actually doubled it to 38 cents. And instead of doing anything, they left the first 19 cents alone. And then what they called this second 19 cents was a transportation renewal fee. And so basically it was kind of a new fund that was created. It's still distributed by the same MFT formula as the previous one. And then the only difference is this one's actually tied to the consumer price index. So so each, I think it's July 1st, there's an increase. Whatever the increase of the CPI is, this 19 cents increases that amount as well. So over the years, the transportation renewal funds has kind of gotten close to the motor fuel tax, and it'll probably end up passing it this year if I had to guess on that. And then also in 2019, they did a capital bill where they did rebuild Illinois funds. And so we, as McLean County, we ended up getting $2 million a year. And so we used that money on the Meadows Road project going north out of Lexington, and then the Horse Farm Road south of 136 to the DeWitt County line. So that was a big assistance for us to do those projects and get that work done on those two, because those two were full reconstruction projects, and where we basically took the road down to dirt and then build it back up. So that was a good thing there. So part of the MFT distribution then is there's a lot of these discretionary, well, I wouldn't say discretionary programs, but there's a lot of these other programs that take kind of a bite out of the motor fuel tax fund, and they have, $420,000 a month gets tied to the State Boating Act. There's $3.5 million for the Grade Crossing Protection Fund that's done through the ICC. And then there's just other monthly reserves that get taken out of and I got a couple other slides to show this a little bit better, but I just kind of wanted to list some of how, like, all the distributions not necessarily going to the state construction fund or the locals. There's some of this is coming off the top before it gets down to the locals. And then so the way the MFTs is distributed then is, as I had mentioned earlier about the 45 and 54%. So the 45 that basically comes from the motor vehicle revenue, the 37% goes into the state construction fund, and then 63% goes into the road fund. Now, out of that, out of the road fund, there is a portion of that goes to our Township Bridge Program Fund. And so that used to be only at $15 million. They've actually increased that to $60 million total throughout the year. And so, so out of that money, we receive about $1.2 million to do township bridge projects. So then when it comes down to the locals, that 54% is then divided up further. And so 49% goes to all the municipalities, and that's based on the population of each municipality. And then 16% goes to the collar counties that have a population over 1 million. And then where we fall into it is 18% on population of less than 1 million. But so the way they allocate it is they look at the total vehicle registration fees of the total state, and then how much in particular are in McLean County, and then that's how our portion is of motor fuel tax is determined. So it's a little confusing, but so we roughly get, I think we're averaging about 340,000 a month out of the MFT from, and that includes the transportation renewal and the original motor fuel tax. That's a portion to us based on the title registrations in McLean County. And then the remaining is 16% or so to the townships, and that's based on the mileage proportion to the total mileage in the state. So, and then each township is different based on their mileage and everything like that. So, so that's kind of how it's all done. I did hand out, so there's kind of a crazy flow chart here that shows that. You can kind of see where it all starts from, and this is just for the original 19-cent motor fuel tax. So everything goes in the motor fuel tax, and you can kind of see the lists that kind of come right off the top, and then it goes into the motor fuel tax balance, and then it gets divided up from there between the state and the locals, and so that's kind of the flow chart of the original motor fuel tax on that. On the transportation renewal fund, so that's a little bit different, but so 48% of that goes into the state construction account, 20% goes to high-speed rail and transit, and then the 32% is distributed between the locals based on the same criteria as the motor fuel tax. So here's the motor fuel, or here's the transportation renewal fund flow chart. Not quite as extensive, but this still kind of shows the split out of the 32% that's coming to locals, and then the 16% that's coming to the counties. So any questions on any of that so far?
Yeah, I didn't get that. Can you run through all that again?
Yeah.
Two things you didn't hit on, Jerry, is the heavy road use tax for the trucks. Where does that money get allocated to? Do you know?
So, yeah, maybe I'll go back here if I can. So so I think back in 1990, they started the 2.5 cent differential, and then they added 5 cents in 2019 as well. And so that actually all goes into the MFT road fund. So if you see up here at the top, it's got the diesel differential of 7.5%. And so that, and then there's, so 5 cents of that goes directly into the road fund all the way, if you can kind of see this all the way around here. And then 2.5%, or 2.5 cents goes straight into the state construction fund. So none of that comes to locals, it's all to the state.
Yeah, but this isn't what I was asking about. The Mr. Leffler might be able to help you. I think it's $22.90 that you pay directly to the IRS. It's called the heavy road. We call it the heavy road use tax. Not familiar?
No.
Well, it's a big operating expense for us. Second thing, EVs. I get this all the time. So when the state were here, the average person drives 12,000 miles, so there's an extra fee on the license. Does any of that money, so the state retains all that?
Right, because that's just part of the registration portion of an electric vehicle, and so that's all staying with the state at this point. The Illinois County Engineers Association is making a push to try to recoup some of that some way or another. We haven't really had any success yet, but we've had conversations with IDOT saying that some of this, needs to start coming back towards the locals, and we're looking at different funding packages and trying to, make sure we keep this funding up and increase it as we go here but, so. So I have a few more slides here just to kind of, so this is slides I've had, or some things here. So this is 1983. You can kind of see the distribution of the vehicle, the local roads and IDOT, what's carrying the vehicles, and then the distribution of the motor fuel tax funds to each one of those. But then as you come to 2016, you can kind of see where where a lot of they're taking a piece of the pie on some of these other programs that's not getting returned to the state construction fund or the locals. So I just kind of wanted to throw those in there to show the difference on, you know, the motor fuel tax has just been squeezed quite a bit over the last 30, 40 years. And so then so this is kind of our average monthly allotments that we've incurred throughout the last 15 years or so. I think about 2005 was our before this was around 235,000 a month. That was the peak. And then it gradually went down. In 2012 was the lowest we had was 178,000, and then it gradually increased. And then you can see here in 2019 with the Transportation Renewal Fund, and so these are the average allotments that we've been seeing over the years. So it has increased a fair amount with the Transportation Renewal Fund and having it tied to the CPI, so that's been a good thing for us. But on the bright side of that, there's always a downside, because this is our like oil and chip costs that we do for maintenance, and so you can kind of see how the oil since then, it's around 250 cents a gallon, has risen to over $4 a gallon. So so that's, we're getting more money, but also the cost of all the materials, the aggregate, the oils, everything's went up. So, we're not necessarily gaining by, doing more miles or anything like that, as far as, especially for the townships doing oil and chip work. It's, I think it's 22 to 25,000 a mile just for them to do a cover seal on a road. And so that eats into, and so that, they use a lot of that, the motor fuel tax, but if they're only getting $100,000 a year, they're only going to be able to do about 4 miles a year of oil and chip work. And so, and we try to do it like every 5 to 6 years on the county side to do the oil and chip type of thing. And so, so the money still needs to be there. When we look at it from a resurfacing standpoint, so we have 360 miles total, and right now we have around 260 miles that are we consider hot mix roads. And so if you do an average lifespan, let's say 22 years, we need to be resurfacing 10 to 12 miles or so a year right now, which we pretty well maintain. I think we do a pretty good job of that, doing roughly around 10 miles or so a year. Some years might be down depending on the type of project or the type of funding that we have, but we try to match that. But as the prices keep going, we're gonna, additional money is gonna need to be there. So, so I guess that's kind of my soapbox there on that a little bit. But and then I just kind of wanted to touch base on some of the other funding sources that we've used, or that we use a lot. So the Federal Surface Transportation Program we kind of talked about earlier. We get there's a rural portion that we get. So we get about 1.3 million a year on that, and then there's an urbanized portion, and so we work with the town and the city to use those funds. And so they've done quite a few projects with those type of funds the last 5 years. And so we're kind of looking to maybe gear back into doing a few more of those projects as we go along here. And then there's also a federal bridge replacement program. And so we only get about $200,000 a year on that. And so, which is a good thing because at this point, they base it on the square footage of structurally deficient bridges in McLean County. And so we have very few. And so we don't get a whole lot of money from this program at that point. So, so that's a good thing, that most of our bridges are in good shape and that type of stuff. So, but, you know, it's gonna take us 5 years to, you know, save up $1 million to, you know, and that might not even touch a bridge, you know, depending on the size of the bridge. So, so we gotta basically save up quite a bit of money to do that, as we go here. And then I'd mentioned earlier, we got, the Township Bridge Program. We get about 1.2 million a year out of that. The Truck Access Route Program that we use quite a bit, it's called TARP. And so they didn't do a solicitation for 25, so I think they're looking to revive that program a little bit. But we do use that program quite a bit to help us upgrade some of these roads to 80,000 pounds that we still don't have upgraded yet. And then Highway Safety Improvement Program, we use a lot for our safety shoulders on our resurfacing projects, and different things like that. And then the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program that we're doing a lot of our bike trail projects. So we're kind of involved in all these funding sources throughout the year, and some of them are grant related where we have to apply to it. And on that, so and then there's this kind of a link here that kind of breaks down the motor fuel tax side of things. It shows the monthly allotments, the distributions, and so you can get on there. There's a booklet for counties and there's a booklet for townships on there. But yeah, so motor fuel tax. I mean, we bring a lot of resolutions through because everything's got to be approved by the board, and we can't spend any of those funds on a particular project until that approvals happen. So that's why there's a lot for maintenance and for construction-related projects throughout the year. So, any questions on any of that? Or
Member Fagan?
Jerry, this not specifically for the MFT, but what kind of a overall grade would you give our bridges and roads for the county? I know nationally the infrastructure has been in decline for a while, but as far as McLean County goes, what kind of a letter grade would you give us overall?
I would give us an A. And an example of that is, so there is a program that IDOT came out with here this past year, and it's called the Illinois Bridge Bundling Program. And so they looked at like all the bridges and looked at the ratings on the bridges and a whole bunch of different factors. And then they submitted a map that showed all these bridges. And as far as the highway department concerned, we had 0 throughout the county. There was a couple in one of the municipalities that had a couple that were in bad shape, and a couple in the city and the town. But I mean, so there's a big hole. So we didn't qualify because our bridges are in such good shape from for the last 50, 60 years. So there are problems out there. Don't get me wrong there. And then on the road side, yeah, we try to keep up with it, doing pavement preservation and then reconstructing where we need to, and trying to. So Luke and I try to go out every year, and we actually rate the roads and then that helps us kind of figure out our 5-year plan and how to move forward on that. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
So when people are yelling, fix the roads, they don't mean county roads,
I
right?
hope not.
It's not we're not in charge of every single road within McLean County, in
Correct.
other words. Anybody have, yes?
So with the recent retracement in oil, do you expect that cost to change in the future in 26? Because I see that you've lowered it in 25 from 431 to 419. Do you think that'll fall any further with sub $60 oil?
That's always hard to predict. It'll probably just stay steady unless, I don't think it's actually gonna go that much lower. I think it'll stay steady unless, there's a catastrophe that tends to happen from time to time, or yeah, I don't know what'll cause it, but I think it'll stay steady.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Jerry, for all of this. This is super helpful. I always keep hold of this for when budget season comes around, just to be able to understand which all those budget numbers refer to. But if no one has any additional questions for Jerry, we will move on to 4C. Cassie Taylor, our county administrator, has an item to be presented for action. This is a request approval, 4C 1A, request approval of an intergovernmental agreement for rural public transportation services with Connect Transit. And may I get a motion to put that on the floor? Motion by member Fagan, second by member Zebarth.
Thank you, Chair Klein. So on page 28 of your packet starts the memo that was provided to you for this item. I tried to be comprehensive in sharing with you when this project started. It started about a year ago in June of 2024 was the first action by the executive committee to review and look at any changes we wanted to make to our rural transportation. That has culminated, excuse me, has culminated in the action of the Connect Transit Board on April 22nd of this year. They did adopt this agreement that is presented to you and will be presented to the full board. And that came with many conversations with IDOT and Connect Transit and Regional Planning, myself, Lizzie Johnston, and a consulting group that was hired by IDOT to assist with a feasibility plan for a McLean County program. And so the document that was passed out to you in the colorful slides is a presentation that the feasibility group presented to the Connect Transit Board. It outlines very briefly what we want to do with this program. To start, we want to just stay status quo. So for the next 3 or 4 months, we would recommend that the program serve all of the existing ridership that currently exists. And then as they move into the next state fiscal year, look at expansions through agreements with employers or service providers, social service providers, any other links that they could do to expand the service. But really, they are taking a very concerted effort at looking at heat maps and other areas where they believe ridership exists. They're also looking at veteran services to see about an agreement with veterans on any services they would need. And so I respectfully request approval of this agreement with Connect Transit.
Has anyone got any questions for Administrator Taylor? There was a lot to read, and I appreciate all of the hard work that went into that. I'm a teacher, I can wait a long time. Okay. Go ahead, Member Duffy.
So I know in the part of the packet you had sent out, you had mentioned that we're going to have oversight in terms of their annual budget, Connect Transit. Are there any other oversight measures other than reviewing annual budget?
So they will prepare quarterly reports and come to this committee on a quarterly basis to explain progress in any changes that they make to routes. And so that will be the oversight that this committee would be responsible for, is any changes, any updates would be approved through this board, and then of course their annual budget. We do not expect any local funds to be contributing for this program. We've been able to encapsulate that within federal funding and fee programs or service contracts. So we expect much the same, at least in the near future, and we'll see what they come up with in the long-term plan.
Any additional questions? All right, well, seeing none, all those in favor, get myself back up, excuse me, of item 4C, 1A, request approval of an intergovernmental agreement for rural public transportation services with Direct Connect Transit. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, anything else?
I have no other items to present this morning.
Okay, so our last item, other business and communications. Our next committee meeting will be Tuesday, June the 3rd. Member Reeve will be chairperson, and I will be remotely participating, if you allow me to, from Italy. But otherwise, if there are no questions, we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.